This is a story from New York, not the New York of Manhattan and the skyscrapers and Broadway, but from perhaps the toughest square mile in the city, in the South Bronx. It's a story from what they call the Big House, the busiest firehouse in New York, America, and therefore perhaps the world. It's a story about danger and about frustration, a story of a remarkable group of men who belong to engine number 82, ladder number 31, and battalion 27 of the New York Fire Department. Sometimes parts of New York look more like a B-feature film set than somewhere for people to live, like the South Bronx, a backdrop to incessant drama for the firemen of Ladder 31 and Engine 82. The fire statistics for New York are staggering. New York has more fires than Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles and Philadelphia put together. The New York Fire Department responds to nearly 250,000 calls a year, 3 times as many as the London Fire Brigade. And the busiest district is the South Bronx, where last year the men from Battalion 27 responded to more than 10,000 calls. On average, that's one every 45 minutes, night and day, every day of the year. Few would challenge their claim to be the busiest fire station in the world. Most of the fires they fight are in abandoned buildings. Many of them are started deliberately. All are dangerous.
Okay, Karen, let's go. Oh, shit. There you go. Want to try that stuff out the window?
Okay, you want to move back?
Let's open up over here.
What the hell are you? They just pulled the goddamn thing down on top of Number 2, I talked to an officer here about controlling the kids on the apparatus, and he tells me it's a fireman's job. Now, when you're taking up, will you stop back at the 4-2 precinct and get that thing straightened out?
Battalion 27's second call in 15 minutes to this building, the first to put out a smouldering mattress.
The mattress fire whetted somebody's appetite for more fire, and 15 minutes later we were back here and the building was just almost completely involved with fire.
Anybody hurt at all or injured at all?
Yeah, I think 5 men in Engine 82 are going to go to the hospital just to get a check, you know. But it's kind of exhausting when you do 2 floors of fire like that, and you're working at peak capacity, physical capacity. And it's completely exhausting. You should get checked if you have no more energy. You know? So now, if you look around, you see all the men are just about depleted of whatever energy they had.
And this was just for a fire which presumably started deliberately, was it?
Oh yeah, obviously it was an arson, a case of arson.
Christ's sakes, this is ridiculous. You're supposed to be working, but Jesus Christ, this looks like this is a hell of a. If we've gotten anything across to them about safety, this isn't it.
Okay, all right.
Christ, I mean, this isn't worth having 2 guys swivel up a goddamn ladder.
A routine fire in an abandoned tenement with no immediate danger to life or even property. Yet as a result of it, for the next hour and a half, the South Bronx was without effective cover. More than half the men of Engine 82 and Ladder 31 were sent to hospital for checkups, including fireman Dennis Smith.
The captain and Vinny and I just came back from the hospital. we're okay. They kept Benny Cassidy there and Jimmy Stark for x-rays. They had, kind of a inflammation of the chest or something. But we went to the hospital mostly because when you go into heat and smoke like that, it does things to you, to my eyes and to lots of people's eyes. And it inflames them to such that when you even blink, it hurts. So you go to the hospital and they put a needle in the side and drain the whole thing out and put some saline solution.
But is there a safe way of fighting a fire like that as compared to fighting a fire when there is a hazard to life?
No, I mean technology hasn't shown us a safer way of fighting a fire except getting closer to it and putting water on it.
The busiest time for fires is between 3 in the afternoon and midnight, between the time the children here come out of school and go to bed. On an average night, there may be several fires like this in abandoned or deserted buildings. All take their toll of manpower, and on this night, by 10 o'clock, only one of the original crew of 6 on Engine 82 was still fit to work.
I'm an MPO, which means I'm a motor pump operator, and I had to deliver water to the fire. So I'm not permitted to go into the fire building. In the event of a fire, my station is to stay with the engine and make sure that they have the water, proper water.
So it could be said it was your lucky night.
Well, I like to go into the fires. That's my job, and that's what I do the best. Put out fires.
Just the front has it. Just the front has it and drops down?
Whoever has it when we end up on
40 miles away from the Bronx in upstate New York, another world, the gentler, friendlier world of suburban America. Dennis Smith is a fireman extraordinary. He wrote a best-selling book called, simply, Report from Engine Company 82. Dennis sold the film rights for more than $100,000, even by American standards, a lot of money. Dennis and his family, if not rich, wouldn't starve if he stopped risking his life fighting fires. But he hasn't stopped, has hardly even considered the possibility of stopping.
Well, because I have a commitment to them both, to the institution called fire department, and to firemen, and to being a fireman. And in this country, I think it's quite a respectable profession. It's certainly an interesting one. I mean, and for any kind of creative thinker, there's a wide range of possibilities, future growth, as a professional.
But what are the satisfactions you get out of being a fireman?
Oh, they're all at the highest level of abstraction. They've got to do with some kind of a self-gratification, I guess, a tremendous sense of achievement, and a kind of an honor about the whole thing.
I have heard it compared to bullfighting.
Yeah, I guess because bullfighting, after all, comes from a Spanish tradition. And within the Spanish tradition is the whole concept of machismo and the need to prove virility, and perhaps in that sense, firefighters also are fulfilling a need, because the work, as I reflect on it as a journalist now, not as a fireman, the concept of running into a building everybody else has run out of is insane. And for X number of dollars, for a lower middle class income, to do this kind of work and to brutalize bodies the way we necessarily do in the course of our work is also insane. But yet there's, and it goes back to the courage thing. And Joseph Conrad wrote books about it, this need to prove to prove that you can do it. And I guess that operates too among firemen.
Have you ever wished that Dennis would give it up? Give up firefighting?
I began to wonder if, is it worth it that you would be laid up like that just from wrenching your back, picking up a piece of hose, and it does get, gets depressing, but he's happy doing it. I mean, I have to resign myself to that. That's the whole thing of it. I can't make myself miserable about it. I would rather him work in a school, in town, and he's qualified to do that now, or to sit home and write books, and be comfortable. But that would be ideal for me, but it wouldn't be ideal for him.
So Dennis Smith devotes his life to this district of New York, the richest city in the richest country in the world. The South Bronx used to be a respectable Jewish neighborhood. Then it was respectable Irish. Now it's a ghetto fast becoming derelict. It hasn't been bombed, it's been devastated by neglect and the people who live here, mostly immigrants from the deep south or Puerto Rico. There are few parks, no playing fields or even play streets, so they improvise their own amusements, sometimes to the firemen lethal.
What they'll do is they'll cut a hole in the floor, say right by the entrance to the apartment. They'll cut a hole in the floor and they'll cover it over with some, like a piece of cardboard or something like that. So when the fireman does go in and he's crawling in, he'll crawl, and they'll go right through the hole. And what they'll do also is, a new one what they were doing was they get piano wire. And they were stringing it right across the entrance to a doorway, about neck high. So when the fireman's crawling into the place, he'll crawl in and they'll cut his throat with the piano wire.
Another one they were doing was with bags of gasoline.
Balloons full
of gasoline. They'd have them hanging up, and as the fire would burn, they'd open up the gasoline. As you're going in, the gasoline would open up, and it would light up right in front of you, sometimes right on top of you.
Another unbelievable thing that they have here is like when there is a fire in an occupied building, there'll be one floor that the apartment that is burning, and the floor below it or the floor above it, they'll be taking stuff out. They'll be, looting places, which is really unbelievable. And like we have no way of knowing who's the occupant, if it's their property that they're taking down or what, So you let them go by. Then like 10 minutes later, somebody comes up and says, my apartment was robbed. And you say, well, listen, lady, there isn't much we could do about it. We've seen people coming out with televisions, but we don't know if they own them, and everybody, and even the people themselves have, they've armed themselves with sticks and stuff and gone after these people, that they know that they're looting and stuff like this here, which is really unbelievable. It sounds like they're setting an apartment on fire just for the purpose of looting and robbing.
The people of the South Bronx are mostly transient. Few have jobs, most exist on welfare payments from a city hall which often seems more interested in keeping the people quiet than providing work. The poverty isn't material. No one starves, they dress well, own television sets, refrigerators, often even cars. It's spiritual, the poverty of hope breeding apathy and violence. Beneath the apparently placid surface, the South Bronx is an urban jungle.
Well, there's no way out for the people in the South Bronx. I mean, I see that. They're transient people. They go from one block to another block to another block until they have a fire, until they're burglarized, until they can't meet the rent. And, but it stays in that one, about a 2-mile diameter. And there's no way out for them. And that's the tragedy of it. You have to be concerned. And all of this stuff, of course, is manifested for us in terms of fire, in terms of false alarms, in terms of fires in abandoned buildings, in terms of real fires and what I call real fires, serious fires in occupied buildings where people die very easily and very quickly. For the firemen in Engine 82 and Ladder 31, I mean, there's no chance of reducing the kind of work that we're doing, or reducing the response that we're making to false alarms and to fires, unless we do something about the conditions of the Bronx. So, you know, I'm looking at it from one hand as a human being, on the other hand as a fireman, and I think we have an obligation with both hands to try to do something about it.
Eddie Montague is one of the few firemen to live in the Bronx to understand perhaps just how difficult escape is, even for the children.
Show them how you play basketball. Show them how you play basketball. Show them how you play basketball. Come on. See that? See him dribble. Let's see you make a hook shot. Let's see you shoot the basketball. Come on. Shoot the basketball. See that? I know. He's something too, huh? He is something.
Mostly the firemen of Battalion 27 are resented. Even though he's black, lives here and risks his life for their lives and property, Eddie Montague finds he too is resented.
Well, it's in this particular area, it seems to be a resentment towards the uniform. The uniform seems to represent the establishment to some people, but then again, you can't say to all people, but it is here and it is prevalent where the uniform does turn a lot of people off.
Do you find, in fact, that being black in a largely black and Puerto Rican neighborhood is a positive advantage ever?
Well, in certain situations, it's an advantage. In certain situations, it's a disadvantage, because as we were just saying, you represent part of the, some people feel that you represent part of the establishment, and consequently some people feel that you're not on their side because you're wearing a uniform, when actually we're civil service, and we're out to do a service for the public, which is all the people of the city of New York.
2896 Westchester and Manor Avenue. First Alarm Units acknowledge and respond.
31-10-4. Get out, 82, truck on the sheet. Get out. Everybody go. Get out.
The firemen always hope that every call will be what they call the big one, a fire where there will be leaping flames, screaming people to be rescued, chances to demonstrate their expertise. The men may hope for the big fire, but usually it's trivial, a food on the stove fire, or a small fire started deliberately.
Did somebody start the fire, do you know?
We did.
Yeah? Is he in your family?
Yeah, it's my child.
Okay.
Oh, did you? You better tell me the truth. Did you start that fire down? You did. What? Why you do?
The place was like this, all these other rooms.
Yeah, that's when we in that up.
All right, so that's it.
Okay.
You can leave.
I'm sorry, y'all had to go through the truck. Where's the dog?
He ran out of the house.
The door was open when we got up there.
11:30, and for Ladder 31, the 14th response since the shift began at 6. And this time, it is a major fire, in a market complex only a few hundred yards from the firehouse. was a serious enough fire for units from all over the Bronx to be called in. There were 39 appliances at this fire, including specialist units, a communication control vehicle and a fire department ambulance. Nearly a third of the 150 firemen needed treatment. Many were on sick leave for several days, although there were no serious injuries. Casualties in the fire department are high. Last year, 3 times as many firemen as policemen were killed on duty in New York.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?
The annual presentation of awards and medals for gallantry to the men of the New York Fire Department. For the men of Battalion 27 from the Big House, as they call their station, a very special day because they've won 2 medals, presented by the Mayor of New York, John Lindsay.
It is because we as a people value human life that firefighters go willingly into burning buildings, defying every powerful basic instinct for personal safety and survival. Not everyone in our society can share the burden, the commitment, the brotherhood, and the satisfactions of firefighting, or have the special grief and honor which comes to the family of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. But everyone can take pride and hope in the examples of courage, compassion, and commitment which we honor and celebrate today.
The Nair Torment Society Franklin Delano Roosevelt Medal, donated by the Nair Torment Society, is awarded to Fireman Charles P. McCarthy.
Well done. Thanks. Proud of you. Thank you. Nicely done. Congratulations. Congratulations, fellas. Congratulations, boys. Come on in here. Give your buddies a big wave up there.
Charlie McCarthy of Ladder 31 won his medal for saving life.
Got your team here. Yeah. You got the whole gang, haven't you? Yes. The entire house.
Dan Gainey, too, was awarded a medal for saving life. Perhaps the drama and risk so dryly described in the official citation can only be fully appreciated by other firemen.
Dan, what exactly did you do to win this medal?
It was out on building inspection one day, and I spotted smoke and flame pouring out of a window in a tenement. And I ran up there and I pulled the box, and
that's the fire alarm box.
Yeah, the fire alarm box. Yeah. And a few of the neighbors said there were kids trapped above the fire floor. So I went up, I passed the fire, and I saw there was smoke and flame overblowing out into the public hall. So I reached in and I slammed the door closed, right? And I went upstairs and I tripped across a woman and child unconscious on the floor above. I dragged them downstairs, put them below the fire, right? And then they were screaming. There was a woman trapped in the apartment directly above the fire. So I went up there and I could hear her screaming. And I forced the door open and I went in and dragged her out and dragged her downstairs, and she was extremely heavy too. So that's it. That's the entire rescue.
You make it all sound very cool.
Yeah,
That's part of a day's work.
That's it. And then the fire companies came and they put the fire out, and that was it.
Did you have any safety gear with you?
None. No work whatsoever.
Must have been quite a decision to make, though, to go into a burning building on your own.
No, you don't think about it. It's done strictly on impulse. You know, you see a fire, you just go. And there's no thought about yourself and nothing. You know, they were screaming that there's people trapped upstairs and everything. And you just go. That's it.
You may just go. I don't think most people would.
Well, that's what you're getting paid for, right?
Okay, now. Okay, Danny Boy! Trials and Tribulations for #1 medal winners of the year. Dan Ganey with his $100 war bond and Franklin Delano. Mayor LaGuardia medal. Here he is, stand up. The Silver Bullet. His wooden head. Mr. McCarthy, Charlie McCarthy with... Put him up on the chair! He didn't get any money. He didn't get any money. Charlie McCarthy, the Silver Bullet. Charlie, there's the Charlie McCarthy! Salute!
To all of ye, without ye, without me.
Okay, one hymn for Charlie McCarthy.
Afterwards, in a bar in the Bronx, the real celebration, a cross between Saturday night at a rugby club and a Gaelic ceilidh. "3 miles away in the South Bronx, normality, an abandoned building deliberately set on fire. It's no one's responsibility to pull down these buildings, so they're set on fire, and firemen have to risk their lives putting them out in case the fire should spread to occupied buildings. It does sometimes seem the fire department is simply there to provide a permanent street cabaret.
In the neighborhood seem to get some enjoyment out of using some form of accelerant, usually gasoline. And as you can see, I have had at least 5 what we call all-hand fires in this building. And it's a routine, more or less, for our neighborhood.
Most calls are routine, to piles of rubbish that no one clears away, to stolen cars stripped of tyres, batteries, seats and wiring, then set alight for fun. In the South Bronx, services are beginning to collapse. The sanitation department can't cope, neither can the police, and the fire department is stretched to breaking point. On bad days, the men of Engine 82 and Ladder 31 seem to be the last barricade before the final collapse of the Bronx.
I can remember it, and all the fellows here on Simpson Street, which is one of the biggest at one time. It's lesser now because the buildings are gone, they've been burned out. It was one of the biggest areas in New York City for prostitution. And here, you know, Phil pulls up, takes a hydrant, flames are coming out the windows, and Wooly and everybody else is stretching the hose. And while this is going on, you know, and I'm looking, you know, what's my next move? What am I going to tell the chief? What situation's got? Here's a hooker coming down the street with a guy by the arm, goes into a vacant building. You know, she's going to go to work on him and get $2 to take a shot.
They even ask us. That's right, right? So, hey, fine.
And then, you know, then 2 hours later we roll out again and we go over to Fox Street. And we're putting out a rubbish fire at 6 in the morning. This is after being out, you know, 30 times a night. And here's some guy with a knife out. And he's going to cut, you know, and, you know, we're doing our job. And here, this is all going around like we weren't even there. Here's the fireman putting out this rubbish fire. And here's a guy with a knife, you know. He's going to cut this on the front door.
Right. We roll over too.
You know, I guess all this excitement captures us, you know. And that's why we stay here. You know, we're dedicated. We like to help, but it's also, for me, this bit of excitement. I mean, you know, everything immeasurable is going on right here in the South Bronx. And, you know, it kind of keeps me going.
A 100 years ago, these men would have been found on the wild frontier, driving wagon trains across the deserts to California and fighting Indians. Today it's still very like the Wild West, but with hours of tedium and routine as well as the same drama and excitement. That same challenge of the unknown is found in the South Bronx, where sometimes the natives are very far from friendly.
Well, this morning on the way into work we had a report that the police had located a carcass in a street on 172nd and Bryant. It turned out to be a stripped carcass of a gorilla. It was headless and the fur was removed, the skin was removed. South Bronx.
8231 Battalion 27, go!
There is, surprisingly, a waiting list for places in Battalion 27. Charlie Ferrand even gave up the safer world of book illustrating to prove something to himself working here.
You have to prove yourself. Oh yeah, you have to prove yourself, I think, to your fellow workers, and that's done through time. You know, for taking the beating, you know, taking the knob, as we call, and not being, like you say, afraid. I mean, you are. You know, you don't try to show it, and you just go off and you do your job, and by doing that, you prove it to your fellow workers.
For those who feel the need to prove themselves, opportunities are continuous, yet men rarely leave Engine 82 and tend to be quietly pitying of their colleagues in the slower houses of smart Manhattan or respectable suburbia.
No, I went to the boulevard to see if she was there, the medical center. They announced all the things she isn't there.
But he can watch the apartment there before.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. I live right upstairs. My sister's sleeping, I'm scared.
It's all over with.
is only one of the dangers faced by the firemen of the South Bronx. They're often stoned, sometimes have dustbins and rubbish dropped on them from roofs, have even been stopped from reaching fires by snipers. Their arrival must sometimes seem a mixed blessing. They can appear unnecessarily destructive.
They call us the house wreckers. Not all of them, but some of them do. And we do look like we're going in there to wreck the place, but to take out the windows, that's how we get our fresh air. And that's how the people breathe that are trapped in there. If we don't take out the windows, then nobody's going to get any fresh air. So naturally it looks like we're there to tear the building down, and which we're trying to do is give anybody that has a chance a breath of fresh air. It does look bad, but they don't understand the job, that's the whole thing.
Do you ever get into ugly situations because people don't understand what's going on?
Oh, plenty of times, yes. We've had to have a few people arrested for trying to stop us from doing our job, and we've had to forcibly eject them from the building.
The firemen damped down not only fires but tempers once they saved a man whose car had been destroyed and whose life was threatened because he'd killed a dog. It was almost as routine as fighting a fire.
In this particular area we have stabbings, shootings, war leaks, everything. Overdoses, bursts,
and family arguments.
Family arguments, but the thing is, the men are trained. In other words, they pull a box, we roll in. If it's a stabbing, we're going to stop the bleeding, If it's a baby that's not breathing, we're going to, we'll put the resuscitator on her, mouth to mouth, we'll bring her back. If it's a young lady with a giving birth, we can do that, we can do anything.
But why does the fire department get called out for that?
For some strange reason, these people think that, I believe anyway, that most people think that in this area anyhow, that the fire department is their salvation, that they call the fire department as a last resort. They've tried the police department, the housing authority, anybody else, but the most times we'll respond. We'll come for anything. Water leaks, which is on a rare occasion, which happens like, say, 3 o'clock in the morning, right, Chief? Right. These 3 o'clock in the morning, more or less?
Yeah, well, we get there promptly. That's the reason why they
know that we're going to respond.
Right away.
They know that when they pull a box or call the dispatcher on a telephone, that regardless of the time of the day or the night, they know they're going to get help. They may not get much sympathy, but they're going to get help.
Today, Battalion 27 covers an area just 1 mile square, and it's chronically overworked. Out of the 30 or so responses Engine 82 makes daily, perhaps only 2 or 3 will be to fires.
How many fires like this could a man take in a night?
I would think one would be enough if he was inside like that first team was, 46 engine.
So in fact one fire like this could effectively put out of action for the rest of the night one complete crew?
Well, I presume that we will lose 1 or 2 men out of that crew. I don't suspect we'll lose them all. But the 2 men who were up on the top of the stairs when we started operating from outside did take quite a bit of smoke, and possibly will be off for the balance of the tour, if not on sick leave.
Behind what they call the big house is a small yard, the men's recreation space where, in the usually brief intervals between calls, the firemen vent excess energy with games of handball and complicated games of basketball with only one basket.
No, it's the Palace Gate.
They have no canteen, no chef, no staff, no official meal breaks even. The New York Fire Department expects its employees to fend for themselves, unsubsidized. Those who can, cook. Those who can't, eat.
Any light? Light.
They eat well, cheaply, fast, and mostly in silence.
Dig in. 10-4. 82-31, battalion 27, go!
How many red streets you got? Unbelievable.
We won't cycle up there, friends.
In one 3.5-month spell, they didn't finish one single meal without being called out, and most of the calls were false alarms, many to one particular box.
This is box 2785 at the corner of Petona Park Avenue East and Charlotte Street. All you have to do to operate one of these alarm boxes is to lift this flap, which has been so used here it's been broken off, and pull this. And a matter of a couple of minutes later, the men of Battalion 27 will be here on the scene. On a really bad night, this alarm box gets called somewhere between 12 and 15 times, every single one of them false alarms. Sometimes the children will light a little fire over in the park here, and that makes it legal. But very often they don't bother, and if they do get caught, nothing effective is ever done to deter them.
In New York, false alarms have become a chronic problem. In London, where there are no boxes, only one call in 8 is a malicious false alarm. In the South Bronx, every other call is.
That was a false alarm, what we call an MFA, a malicious false alarm. As you saw, we look around, we look for signs of smoke or excitement, and we walk a slight distance, and then we walk back. It becomes more a ritual than anything else. We walk half a block this way and half a block that way. We do it not expecting to find anything because we've become so used to false alarms.
What happens if you actually catch somebody making a false alarm?
I don't know. I've never seen it happen, and I've been to thousands of false alarms.
Why do you think round this area there are so many false alarms pulled?
The kids that pull a fire alarm. They get high, pull a fire alarm, do a lot of stupid things.
But why do they do it?
Just
Be
for
messing
kicks.
around and have fun. But you know, that's not right. To be doing that, you know, because you know the firemen could be having a bigger fire, you know, when it's a false alarm. So that now they try to, tell them to stop pulling the fire alarms.
Have you ever pulled a false alarm?
No, not me.
What? Never pull a false alarm?
No. You ever pull a false alarm?
Yep.
You pulled a false alarm. What
got caught too.
What happened to you?
Took me to court.
And what happened?
They asked me why did I pull it. Told them I was high.
Did they punish you?
Did they give you a JD card, Mike?
Yep.
They mostly give you a JD card when you pull a false alarm.
That's a juvenile delinquent card.
Yeah.
But they didn't fine you or send you to prison or punish you in any way?
They don't do that.
in prison.
They what?
Give me a JD card. How they gonna send them in prison?
They really don't send you to prison for doing nothing little like that. You know, they wait till you do something big, like breaking into somebody's house or something like that.
Even though on a bad night the firemen spend more time resetting alarm boxes than fighting fires, every call Battalion 27 answers may be to a serious fire involving rescues and danger. That a fire might kill is a professional hazard philosophically born, but a false alarm killed one man in Charlie MacArthur's battalion.
A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Mike Carrs, this plaque over there, he fell off the rig. I was driving this apparatus here behind him, and I saw him go off. He landed on his head, and he died about an hour later of head injuries. And it was a false alarm. It was a 13-year-old boy, which they found out later. And it was a dare. One kid dared the other kid, which is normally the case anyway. Mike died for no reason.
What happened to the boy who did pull the alarm?
Well, actually, nothing happened to him. They counted it off as malicious mischief of an underage boy, and he just got a JD card, which is juvenile delinquent. He really didn't get anything. Nothing happened to him at all, really.
You get extra money for this, Phil. You better sit down! Sit down! Sit down!
I respond to each alarm as a new thing, because I know that when I get there, I will have either a false alarm or somebody that needs my assistance one way or the other. Sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, someone would come over to one of my other brothers and tell them, mira, el fuego está en otro sitio. They don't understand this. I do, you know? So I'm like an interpreter, fireman.
What language are you speaking now?
I'm speaking Spanish. The kid does come from Puerto Rico. I was born in Puerto Rico, and I understand the language in this particular area that I work in. And when I get there, I'm more, what do you call it, my chief, right away.
He's required.
Get Vargas down here.
Anybody that
I'm not an interpreter, I'm a fireman.
In the South Bronx, it's impossible to buy fire insurance. For every apartment wrecked by fire, there are 4 or 5 damaged by smoke or water. It only takes 1 or 2 fires to make an entire tenement uninhabitable. Only a year ago, the city of New York spent thousands of dollars doing up this tenement. Now, several fires later, it's abandoned and derelict once more. A playground for drug addicts and fire raisers, a recurring hazard for the firemen.
Joe! The whole crew in 94 is going. Joe Nuka-Cola!
Ready? Let's go. Casey's right behind.
Where's the rest of us? Get everybody together. You're going, I'm not going.
Got it forward.
You got to be so safe. All right, let's go. Get on the stretch.
The problems of the South Bronx aren't peculiar. They could be those of any ghetto in any country where despair replaces hope and the overstretched forces of authority begin to collapse. The strongest sense of vocation is eroded by the futility of fighting fires that shouldn't happen in buildings that many feel shouldn't be left standing, and by injuries, sometimes even death, caused so pointlessly.
Evidently, the first one just wasn't breathing. I mean, how do you know until it's diagnosed?
Wasn't breathing?
Having difficulty breathing, right? So it could have been a problem with his respiration, problem with his heart, just could have been overcome by smoke. Could have had a severe inhalation of superheated gases. Who knows? See, they're the first 2 company, and I told you before, we were at this fire, we were the 4th engine company to arrive here. Yeah. So the fire, although very smoky, was mild for us, because we were just catching the extension of it. Yeah. But these guys were out right in the middle of it at the very beginning, you see. So they, you know, that's consequences of fighting a fire. That's what happens.
We often talk about it amongst ourselves that the one
organization that you cannot do without is the fire department. You've seen yourselves here, 1 hour. I'd say just give us 1 hour and no responsive fire apparatus in the South Bronx, and I wonder what would happen. I would dread to see what would happen. You could do without the police because you can bring a military unit in to control traffic and things of that nature, but you cannot do without the fire department, and you cannot bring the volunteer companies in from outside the city because there aren't enough of them.
Right.
There aren't enough of them in the around the metropolitan area to do the job for us.